the Delaware River, and the coastal waters of Delaware Bay. From Assateague Island, Virginia, tracing the Maryland, Delaware, and Pennsylvania shorelines, to the city of brotherly love, Assateague Island's most iconic resident.
There's approximately 150 ponies that live on Assateague Island. They're very hardy.
A Civil War fortification.
A lot of people, when they're in school, don't like history, but when you get them out here and they get to see what it's like, then all of a sudden it's really interesting to them.
And folk art on the streets of Philadelphia.
It really is a personal experience every time you walk through this space.
Now, 50,000 kilometers of eastern coastline are revealed from above. An aerial journey over America's rugged Atlantic frontier. This is America over the edge. High above the United States East Coast, Virginia's Chincoteague Island and Assateague Island are an ethereal sight. These barrier islands, located 200 kilometers south of Philadelphia, lead to the sheltered waters of Delaware Bay and the Delaware River. Far below, Chincoteague Island is home to the town of Chincoteague, a vacation destination and Virginia's only resort island. But aside from the town, this is one of the most remote regions on the Eastern Seaboard. And it is dotted with unique features that can only be seen from above. Just south of Chincoteague Island, Wallops Island is a barrier island separated from the coast by kilometers of marshland. Lining the Wallops Island shoreline is a NASA facility known as the Mid-Atlantic Spaceport. The spaceport is protected by a no-fly zone, but from kilometers away, 2 launch pads can just be seen. And the Mid-Atlantic Spaceport is connected to NASA's Wallops Flight Facility, located just west of the Chincoteague Causeway. More than 16,000 launches have happened here since 1945, from meteorological rockets to complex orbital launch vehicles. Moving north, beyond Wallops Island and Chincoteague Island, Assateague Island is a pristine site. This barrier island extends 60 kilometers along the open waters of the Atlantic. At the southern end of the island, the Chincoteague National Wildlife Refuge protects Assateague from development. From above, sandy beaches, salt marshes, maritime forests, and coastal bays can be seen. At the island's 20-kilometer mark, a fence crosses Assateague from east to west. It is the Virginia-Maryland border, and it's where Assateague's best-known residents can often be seen. Though they live on Assateague Island, they are known as the Chincoteague Ponies.
There's approximately 150 ponies that live on Assateague Island. They're owned by the Volunteer Fire Company of Chincoteague. Well, physically, they're around a 13 to 14 hand pony. They're very hardy. They're cold-blooded.
These ponies roam freely all over Assateague Island and capture the imagination of all who see them. Locals say there are many stories as to how the ponies arrived here.
We know for sure that some of them came from the mainland. Farmers would bring them over to Assateague and dump them off to keep from having to pay taxes on them. There was villages all over Assateague back in the 1700s, and people had livestock, and when they moved away, they left the livestock. So they all intermingled. They're like a Hind 57 breed. Many different bloodlines in them.
Captain Carlton charts a course along the Assateague Island shoreline. He brings hundreds here each year to see America's most famous wild ponies. But along the way, there is even more to see in the waters surrounding.
We have several hundred dolphin that live around Chincoteague in the summertime. They enjoy all the fruits of the fish that come in here, and croakers, the flounder, the needlefish that we just saw jumping out of the water. They flip their tails, they jump out of the water, they mate, they play together, they chase fish all through the water, they go at 20 miles an hour, you know, they jump right in front of the boat. They come up and look at you, they'll flip over on their back, show you their belly. I never get tired of watching the dolphin because they're unpredictable. In November, they follow the fish out of here and they're gone. Won't come back until around May when the fish come back.
Now, Captain Carlton sets off in search of ponies.
We're in Assateague Channel right now, and we're looking for the ponies, and everything on the right will be Assateague, everything on the left will be Chincoteague. And of course, the ponies live on Assateague, and that's what we're looking for right now.
Luckily, he knows a few favorite spots the ponies like to hide.
Yeah, this is the southern pasture here. From the lighthouse down to that point of woods, there's around 50 ponies. Yeah, I don't see anything. Ah, there they are.
And in the distance, he spots them on a pasture known as Black Duck Drain. They're an incredible sight, a species not native to the area that have made Assateague their home.
They adapted. I mean, they weren't used to this lifestyle or habitat when they first got here, but like any other wild animal, they're going to adapt and they're going to survive. So they adapted to the salt marsh grasses and have been doing so since the 1600s and doing well.
Each year, the Chincoteague Volunteer Fire Department rounds up a number of ponies to control the population. They are auctioned off and are slowly becoming famous around the world.
There are population of Chincoteague ponies all over the country, in every state, in Europe, in Canada, in Hawaii, in Alaska. They're everywhere. They've been selling them for 90 years here.
For Captain Carlton Leonard, Chincoteague Island and Assateague Island mark a rare stretch of coast where humans and nature interact in a way that is truly special.
I don't know what it is about the Chincoteague pony. They're just something people love about a wild animal, and they exist on their own. They don't need man to help them survive. They just do it on their own, and people just find that very attractive. I love giving tours because I love to see the reaction that people have when they see the ponies or the wild dolphin or the eagles flying by, and just to hear the history. People are very interested in a small community like this, having maybe grown up in the big cities, you know, with nothing but concrete all around you, where this is just the opposite. I wouldn't change it a minute of my life growing up here.
Continuing north from Assateague Island, we return to human civilization above the town of Ocean City, Maryland. Like Chincoteague to the south, Ocean City is a resort town. Home to just over 7,000 permanent residents, with a summer population of more than 300,000. Ocean City is the only Maryland community on the Atlantic coast. It's located on Fenwick Island, a barrier spit that traces the eastern boundary of the Delmarva Peninsula. The Delmarva Peninsula covers more than 14,000 square miles. Its name comes from the 3 states that share its territory: Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. And at the northern edge of Ocean City, we cross an invisible line, leaving Maryland behind and soaring above the state of Delaware.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required.
Just north of Ocean City, South Bethany considers itself a quiet resort town, set on the best little beach in Delaware. It has more permanent residents than visitors, and from above, the unique design of the community can be seen. Much of South Bethany is integrated into a canal system surrounding, a popular spot for fishing and recreation. Moving further north, the Indian River Inlet Bridge marks one of the engineering feats of this coast. Built in 2012, it replaced a steel girder bridge badly damaged by water currents eroding the bridge's subsea foundations. This modern structure is a cable-stayed bridge, supported by 4 pylons located on dry land. The bridge measures 790 meters and connects to Delaware Seashore State Park. For centuries, this stretch of coast was largely inaccessible, with wind and waves constantly morphing the shape of the shore. These 2,825 acres were named a park in 1965. And more than 50 years later, millions of visitors enjoy incredible coastal vistas each year. Finally, Delaware Seashore State Park leads to Cape Henlopen. And the Cape marks a geographic shift as we leave the open waters of the Atlantic Ocean behind and enter Delaware Bay. At the mouth of the bay, from high above, we get a rare look at the National Harbor of Refuge and Delaware Breakwater Harbor Historic District. Construction began on these stone breakwaters in 1826. with the goal of creating a safe harbor for the region. During 19th century storms, as many as 200 ships would seek shelter behind the inner breakwater. Then, in 1896, the project expanded, and more breakwaters were built. The National Harbor of Refuge and Delaware Breakwater Harbor Historic District was the first project of its kind in the Western Hemisphere. Delaware Bay covers more than 2,000 square kilometers. And like the barrier islands of Virginia and Maryland to the south, its shoreline is largely uninhabited. Here on the bay's west coast, Bombay Hook National Wildlife Refuge is a sanctuary and breeding ground for all types of wildlife. It was created in 1937, part of a chain of refuges established from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico. From the sky, we see fields, forests, rivers, and streams. But the most important feature is the refuge's marshlands. Bombay Hook National Wildlife Refuge protects one of the largest remaining sections of tidal salt marsh in the mid-Atlantic region. These marshes are a perfect habitat for migratory birds, making the refuge one of the top bird habitats along the Atlantic Flyway. But as the waters of the bay begin to narrow, signs of human activity are clear to see. The eastern shore of Delaware Bay is in New Jersey. And from here, the most prominent view is the Hope Creek Nuclear Generating Station, the second largest facility of its kind in the United States. And just inland from the wildlife refuge, the city of Dover appears on the horizon. Dover marks the gateway to the population centers of the region. Located at the edge of the Philadelphia metropolitan area. Dover is also Delaware's state capital. And from above, we get a unique perspective on the founding of this city. The Dover Green Historic Project is a living tribute to 18th century life here. 79 buildings surround the green, including the Kent County Courthouse, the Old State House, and on the opposite end of the green, the modern-day Capitol building, known as Legislative Hall. The Delaware State Capitol was moved to Dover in 1777 for defensive reasons, namely its central inland location, away from British raiders on the Delaware River. Today, defense remains an important part of Dover's legacy. Just southeast of the city, Dover Air Force Base is one of the most important military facilities in the country. From the sky, we can appreciate the scope of this modern military fortification. Dover Air Force Base is home to the Boeing C-17 Globemaster III. It is a massive military transport aircraft, 53 meters long. It can carry a payload of more than 77,000 kilograms, travel more than 800 kilometers per hour, and airdrop more than 100 paratroopers. back on the water, Delaware Bay becomes the Delaware River at Pea Patch Island. And Pea Patch Island is home to a symbol of the state's military past. Just onshore in Delaware City, a team is heading out to reveal the unique history of this site.
Fort Delaware State Park is located on Pea Patch Island. The island itself was actually a personal hunting ground of a physician, I believe, in New Jersey. But it has actually had a fort on it since about 1819.
There were multiple forts built on Pea Patch Island to protect Wilmington and Philadelphia upriver.
The first fort was built, I believe, around 1819 in response to the War of 1812. It was a mud fort, but that started sinking due to the marshiness of the land. They then built a wood stockade type fort, which I believe was up for around 15 years.
But that wood fort burned to the ground. The government then built a stone and masonry fort that was completed in 1858, just in time for a key moment in American history.
It happened to be strategically important for the Civil War because, again, it was an island and they chose it as a spot to house Confederate prisoners of war, with as many as 15,000 being out there at any time during Civil War from 1863 on.
And this weekend, Fort Delaware State Park is hosting a massive Civil War-era reenactment.
We're heading out to Pea Patch Island now, the home of Fort Delaware and Fort Delaware State Park. You're actually, from here, you can actually see the red roof of the enlisted barracks and the Sallyport side of the fort, which is the entrance. And we're pulling up to the dock here momentarily.
On the island, interpreters recreate life in the 1860s. Dean Protus acts as an historically accurate infantry soldier.
This is an infantry frock coat and I portray a sergeant in the 6th Delaware Infantry who actually arrived to the fort on August 7th, 1864 for duty. This is a general forage cap that they would have worn. And then here are the accoutrements, this is a cartridge box, contained 40 rounds of ammunition for a Springfield musket. And then you have their belt, which would have their bayonet and their cap box on it for the musket. So that goes on above everything. And then that would be pretty much the full kit that you would see on an infantry soldier here at the fort.
And Protus is not alone. Some, like Sarah Ferguson, have a keen interest in local history.
I portray a domestic servant out here named Sally Kirk. As a domestic servant, she would have worked for a Union officer out here at the fort, roughly paid about $12 a month to cook and clean just for that officer. There are 6 kitchens here at the fort, and 6 women would have occupied 1 kitchen, each working for their own respective officer.
Good morning. Welcome to Fort Delaware.
Others, like Marcus Riddell, feel a family connection. He plays a sharpshooter in Company C's 2nd Regiment, United States Sharpshooters.
I'm a direct descendant of our first sergeant from Company C. His name was Edgar Rydell. He actually fought the entire war from beginning to end with the Sharpshooters. We will show actually the breech-loading rifles on actually how the block drops, and we can load from the rear end of the gun instead of a typical muzzleloader. We loaded from the muzzle and show our rate of fire compared to a muzzleloader. This was the new technology of the time period. They cost a bit more, that's why the Army didn't want them. This cost about $42 to make compared to $13 on a typical line infantry Springfield 1861 musket. Sharpshooters, in the advance, on cover, commence firing. Ready. Aim. Fire. Recover. Load and hold.
Others discovered Delaware State Park by accident. Jamal Hall is a student in real life. Here, he portrays a blacksmith who would have worked here 150 years ago.
I'm making a fire poker for one of the sharpshooters. And basically, what I'm doing right now, attempting to draw this out to a point. But as an added difficulty, I'm working with pig iron. Normally, I work with steel. I found out about this internship through the history department at Temple University. There was a guy there that, whenever we would get internships or job opportunities, he would send it out in an email. And I got that email, and I said, I'm from Delaware, so this works fine. I applied for it. I came here. They gave me this outfit, and now I'm walking around here like it's 1864.
But the highlight at Fort Delaware State Park is the firing of a Civil War cannon, one of the oldest existing Civil War-era pieces that is still used on a regular basis.
One of the things that the people really come out here for and really look forward to seeing every day is our 8-inch Columbia. That's a large cannon, a very large cannon. Fired a 65-pound solid shot, solid sphere of iron. We demonstrate that with an actual powder charge every day. So it's one of the louder attractions. You really get your most bang for the buck. That's a real good thing to check out if you're out here as well. It takes a 5-man crew to load. Then they're gonna load our projectile. For this gun, that's a 65-pound solid shot. A sphere of iron that weighs 65 pounds. That's more than some of the people that are here. We wanna make sure that that 65-pound solid shot is right up next to the gunpowder. Battery make ready! Fire! There we go.
Fort Delaware State Park attracts a wide variety of visitors, staff, and volunteer reenactors. Some are here for the first time, but many have returned. Those who do say it's an incredible experience.
A lot of people, when they're in school, don't like history, but when you get them out here and they get to see what it's like and they get to actually play with the kitchen sink or see how bread was baked back then or maybe see how a soldier dressed, then all of a sudden it's really interesting to them.
The Civil War is called just that. It's a war between brothers, and you had the North fighting the South, and essentially you had families fighting families. So it is pretty interesting that it happened right here on the home front. We think of war as happening in a foreign country and not really affecting us directly, but here the Civil War, it was right in our backyard.
In recent events, I've found that, the Civil War has shaped America. There are these divisions between people and the states' identities that really stem from that entire war. And I think it's important for people to come to these sites and read these texts and, see these characters portrayed just to gain a better understanding of why things are the way they are today.
Beyond Peapatch Island, Delaware Bay narrows to form the Delaware River. 10 kilometers upriver, the Delaware Memorial Bridge links Delaware with the southwest corner of New Jersey. The Delaware Memorial Bridge is actually 2 suspension bridges, each more than 3 kilometers long. The first span opened in 1951, but within a decade, 15 million vehicles were crossing each year. A second span was completed in 1968 at a cost of $77 million. And just north of the bridge, the city of Wilmington can be seen. Wilmington is Delaware's largest city, with a skyline marked by low and mid-rise buildings that serve as the headquarters for some of the world's largest financial institutions. But much of the employment and economic activity in the Wilmington area can be found back on the waterfront. The Delaware River is a busy waterway, with cargo ships coming and going to the port of Wilmington and Philadelphia beyond. The river is also home to an industrial shoreline. From the Delaware City Refinery to the Marcus Hook Industrial Complex, oil and gas facilities cover much of the riverfront here. At Marcus Hook, the legacy of oil dates back a century, with tankers unloading at the refinery here and next door at the Monroe Energy Refinery. In total, the industrial shoreline just east of Wilmington is 4 kilometers long. A maze of pipes and storage facilities. But the oil business here has slowed in recent years. Today, these facilities have become an international distribution point for natural gas. Propane, ethane, and butane from western Pennsylvania that is sent around the world. Industry and big business is no stranger to Delaware. It is a tradition that dates back to at least the early 19th century, with the arrival of one famous family.
The DuPonts arrived here in January of 1800, and just 2 years later, in 1802, they began the DuPont Company producing black gunpowder, which was far superior than anything that had been seen before in the United States. Of course, they continued on to produce many other chemical elements, Tyvek, etc. They also built schools. They built highways in Delaware. They shaped Delaware, especially in the early years of the statehood.
Generations later, Alfred DuPont was born. He was an influential member of the family and a great philanthropist. He also built what may be the DuPont family's most beautiful legacy. It was a gift to the woman he loved.
The mansion that you see here today was actually designed by Carrere and Hastings. They were very well-known architects, designed the New York Library, the Frick Mansion, now the Frick Museum. And Alfred wanted only the best to design a French-style mansion and gardens for his second wife, Alicia. The house was built in just 18 months between 1909 and 1910, and Alfred was a key player in the design of this house. The mansion itself is just about 100 rooms, about 47,000 square feet.
But aside from the mansion itself, it's the exterior of the estate, many say, is the most beautiful feature here.
A tour of the gardens begins right here. We're at the top of the long walk. And the reason you have this spectacular view is because this is the center axial line of the entire estate. And you'll notice that the trees, starting with the pin oaks, down to the cryptomeria, down to the short trimmed hedge, the urns, all lead your eye straight down the long walk to the reflecting pool ahead of us. Finally, we reach the reflecting pool. But it wasn't just a reflecting pool. There was a lot of activity here. You can see the stairs leading down to the 6-foot drop. The children, the families spent many afternoons swimming here. Of course, the butler could also set up tables and chairs, and they could also lunch and picnic right here in this area.
While much of the gardens is considered a love letter to Alfred DuPont's wife, the end of the walk is a tribute to his family.
Beyond that, we have the colonnade. It does finish the end of the true French formal garden, but it also served a very important purpose for Alfred. It was in tribute to his great-great-grandfather and his father, and it stands there as a reminder, not only for the family during Alfred's time, but to the visitors who come here now, of what a dream can do when it's followed through and kept in trust by the family.
Back to the mansion. The entryway is an incredible sight.
So we leave the beauty of the French gardens outside, and we enter through the main door into the reception hall. When the house was built, Alfred intended for his friends and family to enter this room and be delighted, charmed, and certainly impressed. And you can see, with all the beautiful classical Beaux-Arts detailing, the gorgeous coffered plaster ceiling, the beautiful dentil molding, the egg and dart, all very indicative of French style. Here we are in the dining room. Before us, we have a table set for a much smaller party than this table could actually accommodate. When all the leaves are in, it extends to 25 feet. It's beautifully set today with family linens, gorgeous royal Dalton china, each plate individually hand-painted, and the crystal is Mosier. You'll notice the coat of arms for the DuPont family is on the water goblet.
Moving upstairs, there's more to see. From the formidable staircase to a surprisingly humble personal quarters.
You can't help noticing, as you enter the stair hall, the beautiful plaster ceiling, the medallion itself, the largest to support a chandelier in the house. The chandelier itself belonged to the Marquis de Lafayette. Finally, here we are in Alfred's sitting room. And I think it's here that we get a clear picture of the man that Alfred was. Although the rest of the house is full of beautiful gold gilting, gorgeous artwork, historical furniture, here we have a very plain plaster ceiling, almost simple furnishings, his glasses and favorite book on the table. This room breathes the way that Alfred was. A humble man, an engineer, someone who cared about others.
For Amanda Kimball, Nemours Mansion is a living piece of the past. A building rooted in a love story that continues to play out for those who visit here.
This place breathes with life. Alfred and Jessie's story are here. He was more than just a wealthy man. He was an inventor, a musician, and he was a philanthropist. He cared most deeply about people in need, more than just being a check writer. It was personal for him. I think it's absolutely important for children, adults, people of all ages to come to Nemours and see something that was created here in Delaware that was really unusual for the time. Nothing like this had existed before, and it really displays Alfred's passion, his creativity, his drive to complete something that was unusual, but quite creative and beautiful.
Back to the shores of the Delaware River, and continuing northeast, we cross our third state line, leaving Delaware on approach to Pennsylvania. And here, beyond the Commodore Barry Bridge connecting Pennsylvania and New Jersey, the skyline of Philadelphia appears on the horizon. Philadelphia is one of the most historic cities in America. Founded by William Penn in 1682 to serve as capital of the Pennsylvania colony. It was here the founding fathers of the United States signed the Declaration of Independence in 1776 and the Constitution in 1787. It also served as a temporary capital for the nation while Washington, D.C. was being built. And from the sky, we get a bird's-eye view of the modern-day structures that make the Philadelphia skyline one of the most recognized in America. One Liberty Place is a 288-meter skyscraper built in the 1980s. Its design and colors have become an iconic part of the city skyline. One Liberty Place is said to have been inspired by New York City's Chrysler Building, constructed 6 decades earlier. And not far away, Philadelphia's City Hall was the tallest building in the city before the construction of One Liberty Place. In fact, it was the tallest habitable building in the world until 1908. City Hall has 700 rooms and covers more than 58,000 square meters. And its most recognizable feature is the 11-meter, 27-ton bronze statue of William Penn on the roof, immortalizing the founder of the city. Far below, other structures carry on the cultural traditions of Philadelphia. From the Barnes Foundation Art Gallery to the Philadelphia Museum of Art, completed in 1928 and made famous around the world for its staircase, featured prominently in the movie Rocky. Finally, in the city's south end, one seemingly simple structure houses a decades-old contemporary art project, headed by artist Isaiah Zagar. Emily Smith is the administrator of Philadelphia's Magic Gardens.
The Magic Gardens is located on South Street in Philadelphia. It's pretty much right in Center City, and it's a rambunctious bar part of the town. This space was all created by one man. His name is Isaiah Zagar, and it took him about 14 years to open the site up to the public. It's about 4,000 square feet of fully mosaic space.
The Magic Gardens was established decades ago, when this block of buildings was at risk of being demolished.
It was much different back in the 60s. This street was actually slated for demolition. There was actually going to be an interstate that came through, so there was no one that bought property in 1968. Only Isaiah and Julia, they were determined to stop the interstate. So they got all their artist friends to start to protest, and they started making a lot of public art. And eventually the city really rallied around the artists, and it became a hub of creative and artistic energy.
Decades later, it's one of the most unique cultural sites in Philadelphia.
This is all considered mosaic art. It's a lot of found art, recycled art as well. It's made of tons of bottles, found objects, folk art from different parts of the world. There's tiles, handmade tiles, other artists' tiles. There's other artists represented in the space. Pretty much anything that you could possibly imagine, you can probably find in the Magic Gardens.
And the gardens begin on the building's exterior.
The first things you'll see when you visit South Street is Philadelphia's Magic Gardens. This is a fence here that has been completely encased in mosaic and other found objects like bicycle wheels and bottles and all sorts of different tiles.
But inside the courtyard, the gardens truly shine.
Here we are in the courtyard, and you will see it's all open and full of mirrors, tiles, all sorts of different drawings. These are found objects, and this is all grouted into the wall with cement.
Throughout the facility, labyrinths and tunnels mark the vision of artist Isaiah Zagar.
What's so special about this part of the gardens is that you can really be completely enclosed by artwork. It's all found objects, different tiles, wine bottles. There's these clay figurines that are other artists' work. You'll see wood and tin. There's all sorts of strange folk art. Over here, there's lots of mirrors. Isaiah basically is a collector. He's collected all of these different things and then sort of created this really overwhelming environment. So this is my plate from a dinner party that we had here, and he will steal it from you and put it in the wall if you're not careful.
Down below, there is more to see. A section of garden created once there was no more room above.
This is the grotto area, and it was dug down after the whole top level was finished. And there's lots of different special spaces like that throughout the whole site. This area here is probably one of the spots that feels the most vast and overwhelming because you can see the sky and really you're down at such a deep level that you can see straight up. It's almost like you get vertigo looking at all the colors and the lights. It's amazing.
Some of the spaces here are also devoted to unique moments in history.
One interesting feature about the gardens are these really special tiles that Isaiah was working on during 9/11. You'll see little airplanes, and you'll see them all throughout the site. Isaiah was working in this space during 9/11, and it was a way for him to really process what he was feeling and his different emotions. It was a very therapeutic time for him to be able to express himself and then embed it as a story in the space.
Decades after it was founded, Emily Smith believes Philadelphia's Magic Gardens and the vision of Isaiah Zagar mark a cultural gem on Philadelphia's South Side.
For me, when I walk through this space, I am often overwhelmed with how unique and strange and exciting the place is. I've never seen any kind of artwork like this in my entire life, ever in the world. It's so special and beautiful and reflective. It really is a personal experience every time you walk through this space.
From the vast and remote barrier islands lining the Atlantic Ocean, to the shores of Delaware Bay, to the industrial waters of the Delaware River, the skies above the Delmarva Peninsula offer an incredible perspective on these historic waterways. Soaring above the shores of Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. These landscapes tell the story of those who live here. By reenacting stories of the past, coming face to face with nature, and exploring the living culture of this region. Here on the edge of America.